We are back for episode 93 of the Owl Triangle podcast. Andy Stevenson, Caoilte Barra, and myself, Ian O'Neill, here to talk all things Irish mixed martial arts. And let's get right into it. Obviously, a big night of fights for the Irish over in PFL Dubai. We have had plenty of time to digest what happened over there, lads. I mean, emotions were high, opinions were thrown out, accusations were made, disappointment was in the air. But, you know, it was all just really when we think about it. Obviously, we're talking about Paul Hughes and Usman Nurmagomedov's fight and how it went down. A great fight, skills, like for skills versus skills. I mean, it was tremendous to look at it. Left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouth, not just only in Ireland, but right across the mixed martial arts community as well. You know, with, shall we say, less than desirable officiating in that one. Obviously, it wasn't a good night overall for the Irish in Dubai. Caolan Loughran did lose his fight as well to Jack Cartwright. John Mitchell was defeated by Marishap Zakuniov as well to kick off the action over there. We've got to start with Paul Hughes, obviously, lads. You know, I think, you know, maybe having a little bit of time to cool down over it. I mean, I would say I was emotional at the time. It's hard not to be, and you know, we're not probably supposed to be when we're covering it, but to me anyway, I felt a lot of it was justified in terms of, you know, the term robbery was thrown about, and I just think it was just very unjust what happened to Paul over in Dubai. You know, we'll talk about it in just a minute, but I think in terms of the fight, let's start there first. Caoilte, it was a really good fight overall in terms of skills versus skill. Game plans, you know, for both fighters were really kind of locked in, and you know, for me looking at the fight, I think Nurmagomedov was looking to try and obviously mix it up a little bit, looking for that takedown in each one of the rounds, and Paul Hughes was looking to try and close the distance, cut off the cage and land those big shots as well, and both those guys were successful in doing that. In terms of, you know, we'll get into the maybe negative side of things in a little bit, but the positive side for sure was really a really technical, skillful fight between the two, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was incredible. It's one of those you could watch the two of them fight again and again is how I see it. The way they match up inside there is just incredible. They have answers for each other. This is two fights in, they're razor close each time, and you see such a wide variety of skills between the two of them. I thought Nurmagomedov, we saw a lot more of his striking this time. His jab, he popped his jab lovely. He was working off that. Then we got to see the power of Paul Hughes and how Paul Hughes was reversing some of the takedowns for Nurmagomedov as well. Overall, it was a phenomenal fight. Technically, to watch was just incredible. And like hats off to the two of them. As you said, we're getting to the negative side of it, but the actual performance from a fan's perspective, from a fan of the sports perspective, absolutely top quality. The two of them match up exceptionally. And absolutely fantastic fight. Shame about the other stuff, but the stuff that we saw in that fight. And one thing I must say is you really called it, Ian. You know, the dirty tactics, I think you were calling wrong there. Yeah.
I hate to be right in this occasion, to be honest, but I mean, you know, I felt in the first fight, and that's what I was going to ask you, Andy. It was the similarities that we've seen from the first fight into the second fight as well. Obviously, you know, really close rounds. You know, very nip and tuck. But momentum was a huge thing as well. I felt it was a huge thing in the first fight, and you know, it was a huge thing in this fight as well. And right from the get-go, we've seen that. But maybe just your opinions on the fight before we kind of get into the fouls and the officiating and everything like that. Did you see many similarities in this second fight when the two guys matched up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Usman Nurmagomedov did an unbelievable job of adapting. And this is kind of what we were talking about coming into this, was how do each of them adapt? Like, it was such a high level fight, the first one. I think this one absolutely lived up to it. It's like, to me, one of the most compelling matchups that we've seen outside of the UFC, that we've now seen twice outside of the UFC in years. Like, you know, you have some individual fighters like the likes of a Dakota Ditcheva and people like that, where people tune in. Like, there's clear talent there, there's, you know, clear stardom there. But I feel like this matchup where you've got two fighters who appear to be at least, you know, two of the top fighters in the world and wouldn't look out of place in the UFC's top 10, I would say. It was phenomenal. Usman, I thought he did a brilliant job of using his jab. He really kind of kept, like, he made it very difficult for Paul to get inside, because like where Paul does his best work on the feet against a guy like Usman is when he can get inside, when he can land those hooks and rip to the body and go up top. And I just thought he did a phenomenal job there. Paul's grappling defense was like unreal. Like, but I suppose the not negative, but like it's a defensive position. Like when you're looking, it's such a high level ability, but Usman was, Paul is defending in those moments. So, it's not something that necessarily scores.
Well, yeah, it does. I would beg to differ on that, to tell you the truth. I think we have a bit of a difference of opinion, and I know you scored the fight for Usman, but Usman is also trying to attack. He doesn't want to let Paul up as well. So what do you score more in those occasions? That would be, to my understanding, more of a kind of a neutral position as well.
I'm not. Yeah, 100%. I'm not saying that the takedown score by any means.
Yeah. But I understand what you're saying too. Like, I mean, that's what seemed like. I mean, in terms of game plans, right? I think that's what Usman seemed to want to do. He wanted the difference maker to be the grappling, and him kind of pushing for the takedown and stuff like that. I believe to be super effective in that game plan, you've got to be taking down and landing a lot of damage. Not a lot of damage, even some damage is better than no damage. And I think more times than not in that fight, I feel he didn't land as much damage as he would have wanted to. And that was down to, as you said, Andy, Paul's very excellent the defensive grappling there to try and get back up, because obviously Usman was trying to work to advance his position, and Paul was obviously trying to work to get back to his feet.
Yeah, the pressure that Paul, like as soon as Paul was able to get back up, he's immediately on him. He's immediately, when they're striking, Usman's wanting to keep it at range. Like he's a longer fighter, he's a slightly taller fighter. He is in a more advantageous position when Hughes is at the end of his jabs, at the end of his kicks. Whereas Hughes wasn't allowing him to create that space, create that separation off the grappling exchanges. He was right in there, right, landing big shots.
You mentioned the jab as well. I think the jab. You mentioned the jab of Usman. I thought Paul's
Hughes
jab
as well,
was really good, and
dropped him.
I think dropped him. I think he wobbled him twice in the 5th round, and dropped him. Like the first one is questionable, but the second one is no doubt in round 5. I think Usman's was more of a probing jab, whereas Paul's was this stiff, powerful, impactful jab as well, which I felt was excellently used throughout the fight. Like, we didn't get to see it a little bit more, but I don't
know if you've thought this as well, but like when you're talking, like the kind of probing jab, like when Usman's striking, because he's longer, because he's landing those kind of like the teeps and the long kicks and the long jabs, they're kind of easier to see, if that makes sense. Like, rather than when Paul's in close and he's landing these hooks, like it's kind of, to the naked eye, it's a lot more difficult to score, to be able to see that. So I found that very difficult. Like, even though you're watching it multiple times, it's like, well, it's hard to tell what is really landing cleanly, what's not landing cleanly, which is more of, a visually, like, I think Usman's shots they're easier to spot visually, because he's popping a jab out there from range, he's popping a kick from range, where it's kind of more clear than when Hughes is getting on the inside and there's he's coming in at different angles. And
I mean, yeah, it is difficult, but I watched this fight back now a couple of times just to try and make sure. Before we get into the score, let's get into the shots first, right? I want to kind of tell the story of this fight, Caoilte. You brought it up. I highlighted the fact that it happened in the first fight, and man, it happened again in the first round in this fight. The second round, we had the headbutt at the end of the first round as well. I counted five low blows and a headbutt. Like, and you have to fucking ask yourself the question is, like, what needs to be done for a point to be taken when you have that much egregious fouls? It doesn't matter whether it's on purpose or whether it's not on purpose. You have to own the shots. You have responsibility of the shots that you're taking. And some of them aren't even called. There was one little flick one. I think it was in the end of the 4th round where he threw a spinning back kick. which landed as a low blow as well, and just completely fobbed off by Keith Peterson. It was really, really bad officiating in terms of, what was allowed to happen in there, and the consequences that it has on the fight too. Like, it takes a massive amount of momentum away from Paul, who is, I feel, a good momentum fighter. He builds upon his momentum. What did you think of all of that?
Yeah, I think if Keith Peterson put down a marker and got a bit more control of the fight earlier on and lay down a marker and then actually followed through with some of the, for example, a point deduction later in the fight. But even with the head, like that side headbutt, I think that Usman and Nurmagomedov just wanted to do the head-to-head thing and pushed in a bit too much. But even just cutting that shit out straight away and actually just letting them fight and calling it as it is. If there's a foul, stop it. If there's another, then take the point. In this case, it just kept going, and I just feel like the fight got away from Keith Peterson in this sense, because as a result of that, then we don't have a point taken, and that leaves this kind of cloud over the fight and a lot of questions over, well, if this was taken, how would it look? We know now because of the scorecards. But it's annoying. I don't like it. It breaks the momentum of the fight. It gives Usman a chance to rest. I'm not going to say that they're intentional or not, but they shouldn't be happening as much as they did, and he should have been punished for them. That's the kind of bottom line of it, to be honest with you. So
there's a lot better ways that I prefer to be rested in a fight rather than getting a kick into the balls to do that. Through fights, it's not really. I just think you said it. Like, the marker has to be set. Like, I mean, in certain terms, I don't know how it works, but if you're reffing a fight, you're going to ref a fight. Wouldn't you, Andy, as a referee, maybe go back and look at the first fight and see how it went down and stuff like that?
Because it's an interesting topic, because like, you can't come in and you can't take into consideration the previous fight when you're reffing this fight, but you also have to be aware of what, like, when there's a fight out there between two lads where there have been fouls, like, you don't go in like kind of actively looking to penalize based off a previous fight, because you have to treat it as an independent contest. But you can still go in there knowing this is a thing that has, there's a bit of a pattern here. So I need to make sure that I'm looking out and being, that I'm sharp here, so that when and if and when this comes up, that I can deal with it, the right way. And I don't think he did. Like, obviously there was the 2 low blows in the first round. The second one, he literally just like acted as if like, would you stop moaning about that? Like, get up. It was like an adult talking to a child.
Wasn't it? It was like
just stop.
Paul had done something wrong, wasn't it?
Yeah, especially at the end of the round where like there's and
he didn't get you at all. Well,
no,
he actually.
The headbutt, like, Paul has basically admitted that there was a little bit of making a meal of it, but he fucking got headbutted. It wasn't like he loafed him at full power. It wasn't. I just watched the Smashing Machine there. It wasn't like full Mark Carr in Pride days. But it's still, you make contact with someone's head, you drive your head into another person's head. It's egregious. It's against the rules. Like, it's happening after the bell as well. It's not even in the middle of a round. And then
no warning or nothing.
You take a headbutt and you get given out for a foul that was deemed a non-foul about 2 or 3 minutes previous. It's just bizarre, like.
Very, very, very bizarre. And then, it's crazy to think, even if the point was taken for that and the point was taken for one of the 5 low blows that Paul received throughout the fight, that he still wouldn't have won the fight. It's mad. It's mad to even think that way. Let's go through the judges' scorecards. Brian Minor scored a 50-45. Hadi Ali scored a 49-46. And Darrell Ransom scored a 48-47, all for Nurmagomedov. And yeah, I mean, this created such a shitstorm online, and rightly so. And it's just an absolute pity because, it was, like you said, Andy and Caoilte, a fascinating fight to look at. And the incompetence of the scorecards, I think, really took away from what great fight this was. I mean, a 50-45 scorecard by Brian Minor is completely unforgivable. I'd argue heavily against the 49-46, and I think the only one that I could really justify is Darrell Ransom's card is a 48-47, and it's the only argument that I would pretty much listen to in this fight it could be a 48-47 either way. I scored this, and I've watched it back, and I'm taking all Irish bias out of this. It's very hard for us to do as Irish MMA media, to not have a level of bias when you're looking at fighters and scoring fights. But that's why I wanted to before I came on here, and I've watched this fight 5-6 times, and every single time 48-47 for Paul Hughes is what I scored this fight. Round
Which
one.
rounds?
Round 1 Nurmagomedov, round 2 Paul Hughes, round 3 Paul Hughes, round 4 Nurmagomedov, round 5 Paul Hughes. And I think, rounds 2 and rounds 3 were the close ones. Obviously, round 2 was a toss-up. That's where a lot of people will have a difference of an opinion there. I just think that the better work and the more impactful strikes in round 2 were by Paul Hughes. Stiff jab early on, Paul Hughes landed a low leg kick. He landed another couple of jabs throughout the fight. Nurmagomedov landed a couple of jabs throughout that round too, but none I don't believe are as impactful as what Paul were landing in the fight, where, you could visibly see Nurmagomedov moving backwards after the strike. Nurmagomedov obviously tried to go for the takedown in round 2 and was successful and got the back, landed a couple of small little pot shots in behind, but Paul worked back up to his feet and landed a beautiful hook off the clinch there as well. So, I mean, what I'm asking myself in judging, and, it's great. It's easy for me to kind of talk like this now as well, because I'm after watching it fucking 6 times too. But what I'm asking myself is that what was the most impactful sequence in that series of events, from the takedown to Paul working his way back up to the big shot that he landed off the break, and then he landed that kind of crescent kick, body kick at the end. Wasn't that much. It was I think 3 minutes. The clock was at 3 minutes and 40 into that, maybe even less into the second round, and Nurmagomedov hadn't landed a strike yet in that round as well. So, he was successful with the jab, like I said, and the takedown, obviously, with a little bit of damage, does score as well. But, like I said, Paul, I think, responded to all of those sequences very well. And I think, we can talk about the other rounds as well, which are very close. But I think it is round 2 really that, to a lot of people, is kind of the difference maker in this fight. Caoilte, I'll go to you first. I'll go to Andy. Then after that, just get your opinion on your scoring of the fight, and maybe my assessment of the second round there. Maybe I am out to lunch. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, to be honest, I agree fully with you. I think you've put it well there. To be honest, I think the fact that it was a 50-45, 49-46 is absolutely, like, they're both, I feel, absurd. The watching it, I thought 48-47 either way. I think sometimes I don't know about you guys, sometimes I try, and I'm aware that there might be an Irish bias, so I nearly try and score. I'm nearly a little bit harder as a result. And I was watching it, I was thinking, I think this is Hughes, but then the other side was like, but then the gut feeling was telling me, I have a feeling this is going to be a split the other way. Either way, I thought it was a split. I wouldn't argue the 48-47 either way. You can justify both scorecards. I personally would have it for Hughes, but anything else outside of that I thought was absolutely absurd. And it's the toss-up rounds, like you were saying, that where the differences would be, and they're the ones I thought the differences would be in the scorecards. However, it just wasn't reflected that way. And it's a bit of a shambles. It's kind of it's taken away from the moment, it's taken away from both fighters, and it leaves a lot of people quite angry and disappointed, to be honest, especially fans, especially fighters. Then you've got the fans on top of that and the teams. It's overall, it was just a shame to see that happen.
Yeah, I think the 47-48, Andy, for me, like I said as well, 47-48 or 48-47, either way, for me, is definitely something that I can digest. I wouldn't fight back too hard against it. It's what do you think of all of it? And, after watching it back and everything like that, you're kind of leaning towards Nurmagomedov a little bit, but, race are close.
I think the whole world agrees that 48-47. Well, sorry, not the whole world, because there'll always be people who will be very strongly with other opinions. But the vast majority of people could see it 48-47 either way. To me, it came down to the second round. But again, like, to provide some content, like the first time I watched it, I was out to dinner with mates and was told that I was the rudest person that one of my pet friends had ever come across, because I was sitting there with the fight at the table and I'd stuck headphones.
You gotta get that schedule right, Andy. Come on, for fuck's sake.
I had stuck headphones and everything in. I was pure.
God.
I was the most antisocial bastard going. But like you can't take that seriously. So when you're really scoring, so I watched it back. I thought the first round is the clearest one of the entire fight. It's obviously an Usman or Nurmagomedov round. Second round is so close. Like I
think 5 is almost as clear as 1. I think Paul was winning first round until I don't want to fucking open up a can of worms on every round here, because we could be talking here for 6 hours about it. But I think Paul was winning it until the takedown. But I do agree that it was a pretty clear round. But I think number 5 as well, which was a pretty clear round.
I went and I probably. Maybe there is an element of like anti-Irish bias in the way I was looking at it, because like what you lads are talking about there, you don't want to be going in and being clouded there. Second round is so close, like it's so close, and I could probably watch it back another again and then change my mind. And it's not one that, like, I'm not like, oh yeah, Usman definitely won that round, not at all. I'm more like, right, if a gun's points in my head and I have to choose, when I last watched it, I chose Usman for that round. It's not something that I'm like, feeling passionately about or anything like that.
What would be some of the things then that, I gave maybe the argument for why I scored it for Hughes? What would be some of the argument as to why you would score that round for Usman?
Oh Jesus, you're putting me on the spot. I honestly, I need to go back and watch it again. I had it all clear in my head back when I watched it probably a week ago at this point. I don't remember is the honest answer there. It was just that's where I landed on that day, so I'll need to watch it again or go look at the notes that I had. But look, I can absolutely see this 100% as a Hughes win. I can see it 48-47 Usman. Rounds 3, like when I watched it, I remember thinking round 3 was Paul's strongest round, but then I've heard him coming out himself and saying that 2 and 5, that 3 was the toss-up for him. So maybe I need to go watch it again. I don't know, but like to me, the weird, like not the weirder thing. The scorecards are obviously incredibly controversial, but it's also how they got to the scorecards, or like how they got to the final scores round by round is bizarre too. Because like the 58, like I had thought that round 3 was Hughes' best round. But Darrell Ransom gave him the second and the 5th and not the 3rd. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm the issue here, and I need to go rewatch it. But there's just really bizarre scorecards here. And then like Haydee Ali 49-46. I don't agree with that. I think Paul definitely won 2 rounds. Yeah, bizarre.
Yeah, very bizarre, and cast a big shadow over an event, and it's kind of like, should I say it? It's so PFL-esque, isn't it, guys? Like, I mean, one of the biggest cards that they could have put down, and then it's just shrouded with controversy. And we're going to talk about John Mitchell's fight as well, which is another controversial scorecard too. And before we do that, I guess. Before we do that, I guess we want to talk about the aftermath and what's next for Paul. I mean, I think we could probably have just done a full special on this fight on its own. Obviously, we have a lot more to get through. So, Paul was.
Can we just say that the PFL handling was fucking.
It was just dreadful. Like, it was absolutely dreadful.
The most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, like the fucking 3 scorecards that coming out. I'm always giving PFL a hard time.
It was one of the most embarrassing. Like PFL in this moment, you could like all of the controversy is around the reffing, the judging. We'll talk about John Mitchell's fight in a minute. You had fucking Keith Peterson, who is getting a horrific scorecard in John Mitchell's fight. Then he goes and refs this, makes a balls of it. The judges make an absolute meal of this. And PFL at this point can be like, look.
Then you have fucking Don Davis on LinkedIn saying, "Oh, it was such a fantastic, great event." I'm like, Don, you're like, how, like, what universe are you living in?
How do they get it so wrong when they're posting it out? Like, and I know it's probably just some intern or something that's like, it's a typo error, but like, Jesus Christ, just like check it. Check it. You don't have to be, there's so much controversy. You need to, in that moment, calm down. There's no rush to get this out there, by the way, from your perspective, from the judge's perspective and the fans, everyone wants to see it. But you just get it right. You post it out there, and then you wipe your hands clean of it, because it's not a PFL issue. It's a judging and a commission issue. They can actually distance themselves from it. And instead, they put themselves right into the fray. They completely fuck it up. And then to rectify it in the very end, it's a photo of a computer that has better, there's so many layers to the
conflict. And they still didn't put out the official graphic after. They just left it at that as well. It's like, yeah, one step forward, 2 steps backwards, as it always means. But, you know, it's such a shame. A shame for Paul. And look, we'll see what comes next. Obviously, he was on with Arielani, and you know, the handling of it from Paul was absolutely exemplary. It takes a fair man. I'll tell you this now. It takes a fair man to go on one of the biggest platforms in the community and handle that loss and how everything was handled. Caoilte, the way that Paul handled it there, you know, completely taken responsibility for his performance, which I feel he was very hard on himself as well in terms of how he analysed the fight and analysed his performance as well. But you know, a proper representative of Irish mixed martial arts there, and you know, fuck, I don't know how he did it, to be honest, because he had every right to go out there and be absolutely livid and throw everybody under the bus, but he didn't do that, and you have to give him credit for that too.
Yeah, he's a calm, composed person. I would have been surprised if he did go out and do that, even though he had every right to. He's very calm, composed, and well spoken. And maybe I think you're right. From our perspective, we look at it and say he's quite harsh on himself. But I just feel like it's when it comes to these elite athletes, it's like the mentality is a different level altogether. Where unless they see it as though they convincingly did it, as he put it himself, I think it was. Unless they convincingly won, they're going to be hard themselves. My apologies. So unless they convincingly win, they're going to be hard on themselves, because they'll always want more. They'll want to be the best of the best. They don't want to leave any stone unturned, and that's the vibe I get off him. He's kind of got that. It's just that elite mentality that unless you're at it, I don't think we'll fully get, but you can see it, is how I look at it. And just so it doesn't surprise me how he handled it overall and the mentality he has towards it. It's he's a true professional is probably the best way to put it, and he portrays that in every sense.
I know you definitely feel the exact same about everything that Caoilte just said there as well, Andy.
Yeah, how can you not respect him? Like he basically went in there and like he explained like his demeanor in the aftermath, where immediately like you're looking at this scene in the cage where Usman's like, oh, I've clearly won this fight, and the energy that Paul is giving off is that I've clearly lost this, when that's not actually the case. And what we find out, and you know what people were speculating on, and Paul kind of confirmed, is that he just was disappointed in his performance. He felt like even though it was this incredible fight, he'd put on a brilliant performance, he hadn't shown he hadn't given the best account of himself, that deep down that he knows, like, you know, he could have been jumping for joy and saying I won the fight, and we'd have been none the wiser. But internally, he's thinking, I haven't put my best foot forward here. I haven't done enough. And then, as you said, to not, you know, the world, it feels like so many times with Paul Hughes, he is in a position to stand up for himself and express how he has been wronged, whether it's, you know, slights on his character, his identity, his fighting, whatever it may be, his decision making as far as career, you know, not going UFC, going PFL, all this stuff. And he keeps on ending up in these positions where the world is essentially fighting his battle. So in those moments, he's well within his right to join in and say, yeah, like everyone fucking thinks that I've been wronged here. And every single time he chooses the high road, and to be able to just say, I didn't do enough, it's my fault, this is on me, like that is so impressive. And it's I said this online, it's a damn shame that so many in you know, the more mainstream media and the wider public in Ireland have turned their backs on MMA, partly at least because of Conor McGregor. Largely because of Conor McGregor, that like Paul Hughes, like when you think about sports people, like people who children can look up to in this country, who, okay, yeah, he's lost here twice now to Usman Nurmagomedov. He's faltered at that hurdle to win the world title, but look how he carries himself. Look at the people that he brings with him. Look how he embraces the fan base. Look how he I don't know, he just takes everyone on the journey with him. And by his reaction and by the fight that we saw witness there, okay, he lost, let's say if even I'm saying, right, okay, I think Usman won the fight, I absolutely think that we aren't even close to seeing the potential that Paul Hughes could have with his career. We see so many fighters who lose fights and say lose in Bellator and go on to have amazing careers, and like a lad, I can't remember his name, I think it's a guy called Keith Gallagher. I'm sorry for forgetting his name. Messaged me. I think he listens to the podcast, and he messaged me just a trivia question recently. And he was like, name the UFC fighter who had over 10 losses by the time they won the title, and it was Robbie Lawler. You have guys like that who've lost many times in their career and still rise to become champion of the world. And as we start to look maybe to what's next for Hughes, there's a whole, number of chapters. He's still 28 years old. He's so much left in his career, and if we're seeing him in these huge fights that are drawing such interest now, he can absolutely, there's so many more chapters still to be written in his journey. And for me, without getting too far ahead, I believe that at some point, I'm not saying now or the next year, but at some point we got to see Paul Hughes in the UFC.
I think right now, in my opinion, that's where I'm going with this. I thought personally he should have went to the UFC first time. That's where I thought when he was a free agent that he should have went. I was very outspoken about that. Hindsight is a great thing. I think the move over to the PFL and his decision to go there was a good decision in hindsight. You know what I mean? Because what he has now is he's built up his name. He's got himself some elite level competition. He's involved himself in 2 elite level championship fights now. And will have gained an abundance of experience for that. But I said that before this second fight. I said if Paul Hughes doesn't go out there and get this done, what is left for him in PFL? Because Nurmagomedov didn't want to fight him this second time. He's not, once he's champion there, he's not going to want to give him another opportunity again. And I mean, I just don't know what else is left there for Paul. I mean, I don't know what his contract situation is. I don't know how long he has left, but I would be absolutely looking to try and get over to the UFC right now as soon as I can if I'm Paul Hughes. And I think that would be the best. No, never mind going into a PFL tournament. He's bigger than that. I just think that the time is right now for him to get on over there. Hopefully he, if he has to fight out with contract or whatever he has to do, get over there, get the job done in the PFL, move over to the UFC. Hopefully he's made a few quid over there in the PFL. I think, that's the biggest thing that you're going to have to take by moving over to the UFC is, you're probably going to have to take a bit of a pay cut. But I think Paul is good enough to work his way into big money fights in the UFC as well at only 28 years of age. Caoilte, I'll go back to you as well, Andy. Obviously you kind of brought up this topic. It's something I wanted to talk about as well. But I mean, what do you see next, or what would you like to see next for Paul Hughes?
Yeah, I'd love to see him in the UFC. I'd actually love to see him win the belt, especially after just those last 2 fights. But like you said, it doesn't look promising if Usman is champion. That's the only way. If Usman departs and goes to the UFC himself, then I'd love to see Paul rise and fight for the title and at some point down the line. I think realistically, maybe 1 fight, 2 more fights, and a title shot depending on who is champion. If it's Usman, it won't happen. Then, yeah, hopefully then in that case, fight out the contract, make a few quid, make as much as you can off PFL, and bounce to the UFC because I think he's got that name, that profile now, and he'd be the right person to help bring the UFC back to Ireland as well if they were to sign him. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I stand. Just maybe 2 more fights, fight out the contract, or get a title shot, or bounce to the UFC.
Sandy, I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah, I'd like to see him. I think what's probably realistic is Probably fighting a guy like Archie Colgan next. I'd say Usman. I think Usman, does he still have a fight in his deal? I'm not too sure exactly what his deal is either. So I wouldn't be surprised to see. He's obviously called out Alfie Davis. That'll play out. While Paul is in PFL, I think he should take on Archie Colgan next to position himself for, let's say, if depending on how contracts shake out or whatever, let's say Usman bounces, Paul beats Archie Colgan, then he fights, if Alfie Davis wins the title, he fights it or for the title there again, or if Usman vacates, then he'll still be in the mix there. So, but UFC, it's got to be UFC. There's so many more compelling matchups for him in there, and I just think like his stardom will exponentially increase. Like you have to look at the little things as well. Like PFL have. Look, I give them a lot of credit. They delivered on this. They delivered a phenomenal fight. They delivered the rematch. They gave us what we wanted in the end. But there's little tweaks here and there where it's like the fact that in America it's on like this ESPN Unlimited where it's never just straightforward. There's always something that just puts a roadblock in place to people tuning in, or there's just always something that goes wrong, and sometimes it's not even mainly their fault, but there's always something that goes wrong. Whereas
it ultimately is always their fault because they should be in control of all of those situations at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean,
he's not going to get this. Like he's not realistic. They're not going to sell they absolutely could sell a third match with Usman, but Usman's never going to go for that. He's already, if he wanted, that even from a storyline or a money or whatever perspective that he wanted to create for himself, because it is the most compelling, rivalry outside of the UFC right now, you should be pushing for that. Whereas he's immediately distanced himself, completely from it the same way the first time.
He thinks that he won that fight comfortably too, which is like a complete false.
I don't think he actually thinks that though. I don't think he actually thinks he won it comfortably. I think he's just saying that.
Well, you have him coming out saying that he thought he won at 54-84, which was outrageous as well. But I was never lads. We must move on anyway. Caolan Loughran didn't have his night during his PFL debut, Andy, against Jack Cartwright. Kind of didn't get going early days. Jack Cartwright got off on the feet a little bit. Caolan was looking for the takedowns. Got a couple, but probably didn't get the chance to implement his game plan as much as he would have liked to in that fight.
Yeah, look, firstly, I think Jack Cartwright looked really, really good.
He did.
He looked sharp as hell on the feet. He was quicker. He looked on the feet. He was first to the punch. He fought it at his own range. Going into this fight, what I had kind of said to you lads was that like I think the smart play by Caolan is to go in here, take him down, wear him down, make it gritty, make it an ugly fight, and land his damage from there. And I think we saw that in the third round, but we just did not see that at all in the first two. Cartwright was better in the striking department. He was just better. I think that Caolan's, I think Caolan's frame, like from a body mechanics perspective, kind of works against him at times when he's striking. I just think he's like every single fight he's in, the commentators are talking about how compact he is, and when you compare that, say, to Cartwright, who was just fighting and striking with such fluidity as far as how he's throwing his strikes, Caolan was just a little bit more bunched up, and I think that it went against him, to be honest with you. And I think, and that's also, the style for him is to... It's
the style, but it's also a short notice fight too at the same time.
Yeah.
When he spoke to me as well, obviously you're getting ready for a guy like Lewis McGrillen-Evans, and, who has a different kind of more explosive style. And Jack Cartwright's coming in, in the southpaw, he has a good left hand on him. It's kind of a big adjustment to have to make about 3 weeks out into a fight as well. So... which has been unfortunate for Caolan. I know Caolan does like to prepare, very extensively for the opponent. Some fighters will just prepare, in general circumstances, but you're always off the game plan for the opponent that's in front of you. And
a very tricky one, like...
Yeah, man, Cartwright is a very tricky one.
It's like, we talked about this, everyone's like, it's not the McGrillen fight, but
it's a tougher fight. It was a tougher fight
than Jack Cartwright.
Yeah, it was a way tougher fight, I thought, than McGrillen, to be honest. And Caolan said that himself. He acknowledged that too, but it's a thing, I guess, Caoilte. Caolan has been very unlucky in terms of preparation. It's probably easy for us to say. I was like, taking these fights at short notice, and obviously he hadn't fought in quite some time. It's like, man, it's unfortunate. I think, you know, if he's dealt with a scenario like this again, you'd have to be probably asking questions as to if he will take fights at short notice moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. You know, when it happens once, you can understand, especially when you're in the UFC, your back's kind of against the wall in those situations. I've seen people this week saying when their opponents had missed weight, for example, they feel pressure to fight. And I imagine when there's a short notice one, obviously they're getting you a fight and you want to fight, but it's a bit more, you know, you don't have much say. And now again, it's happened again. You need money. It's been a while since he's been in the cage, and then it doesn't go your way once again. So yeah, maybe going forward if this does happen again, because it's been a bit of a series of unfortunate events when he does have an opponent pull out and he ends up on the wrong side of a decision. And I imagine he'll ask questions, and maybe next time, if there is, hopefully there will be no hiccups, and he'll be able to just focus on tunnel vision on one opponent. Like we saw what happened the last time he had tunnel vision one opponent, Nathan Fletcher, he got the win. So hopefully next time it won't happen like it has before, and we'll be able to see him actually see what the game plan he was preparing all along through camp and put that into place in the fight.
It's also the scenario as well, because like he spoke with you, Ian, on the last episode about there's so much stock being put and push being put behind him from PFL, and when you have himself and Paul, who are, you know, from Tyrone and Derry, and like he probably wants to be on that card. Obviously, it's the PFL debut where you're
you don't fight, you don't get paid. You know,
yeah. Like there's a lot of factors that play in here where it's like it's probably easier.
It's very easy for us to say that he shouldn't take fights.
Yeah,
well, you know, but you know,
but I do think he should probably at least consider that.
Yeah,
you know, if this were to happen again, it's like, well, fuck, like how many times am I going to do this without, you know, where you've got. And
I mean, look, I think what you said and your analytics of the fight was correct. As I think that Caoilte was trying to break down Jack Cartwright, and I think he was expecting to break him down a hell of a lot sooner in the fight than it actually happened. As obviously we've seen that in round 3 where he was super dominant there, and you know, a certain level of an argument for a 10-8 scorecard there as well. I scored a 10-9 myself, but there is a level of an argument there where it wasn't that far away. So, you know, all those things considered and everything that we said, you know, it was damn close to being a draw. Just didn't happen. It was unlucky for Caoilte as well. And, you know, he'll dust himself down. It'll be a bitter one. It'll be a sore one for him. But, you know, he'll be back. Maybe, you know, that Lewis McGrillen-Evans fight was, you know, we were saying if he was to win this fight, mightn't have been made that big a sense. But I think it's a fight that does make sense right now. So, obviously we look forward to seeing Caoilte back in there again. It was unlucky. Let's talk about John Mitchell as well. You know, we talked about egregious scorecards already. This was another one really. It wasn't a Caoilte. You know, John was very competitive in this fight. To see some of the scorecards roll in, I think, you know, you can live in a world where you have this 29-28 either way as well. You know, it was a very, very good performance from John Mitchell against a tough opponent. And, you know, I'm sure he was disappointed with the outcome on the scorecards at the very least.
You'd be shocked, yeah. You could hear in 30-26 when you would have imagined there was a good possibility he was in for a win there is
100%.
Not even disheartening. You just feel disrespected. Because, you know, look, it wasn't the best of fights in the world, I'll be honest. It was close, you know, those first 2 rounds for sure. I thought you could have given both to John, maybe the second bit more of a toss-up if I remember correctly, and then the third going to Zainikov. But where the scorecard came out of, not a clue. As for his performance, I thought he defended the takedowns well. The calf kicks were money as well. We know how good he is with the striking. The striking was decent. The calf kicks I thought were money all fight, and then I think when Zainikov finally got it down, I believe it was the 3rd round, he kind of I think that put the stamp on that round for Zainikov. But overall, it was a good performance, and the scorecards just don't do it justice one bit. Massive.
Yeah, similar enough to what I said. Just let me set you up there for a second, Eddie. Similar enough to what I said in the main event in terms of getting the fight down, but not really trying to get the fight down and not really doing too much damage. I think that was kind of the story of this fight as well, which, you know, for maybe maybe an uneducated eye might seem that, you know, it might have been more one-sided, but like obviously, you know, damage does score a lot. And you just wondering what your thoughts were on the fight itself.
I thought John looked great in the fight, to be honest with you. Like I've watched it once. I haven't watched it back since, but I thought that John, his best round was his first round. I thought it was a no argument John Mitchell round. Now looking at the scorecards, obviously there's the egregious Keith Peterson one, which was 30-26, but even like Sam Amedi gave Zainakov the first, but then gave Mitchell the third. So like even the 29-28, like Haydee Ali gave it 29-28 to Zainakov and gave Mitchell the first and Zainakov the second and third. And that's the card that I saw on first watch anyway. But then, you know, you see 29-28 from Sam Amedi and they don't give Mitchell the first round. So again, like that's a real head scratcher for me. And Keith Peterson's one is just bizarre. Like never in a million years, never in a million years is that a 10-8 round. But I thought, look, decision aside, scorecards aside, I thought John looked great. And it wasn't like he, you know, like you're saying there, like there's a lot of the times where sometimes he was getting taken down and there was really nothing being landed. So like, albeit it's a loss, I think there's a lot of positives to take for John Mitchell from that. And I can understand why he feels hardly done by 100%. And especially when you see that 30-26, like if it was just 29-28 across all three judges' scorecards, then you might, you know, it's a bit more palatable. But once you get that 30-26, it's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
If you're a fighter in general now, right? This is the last we'll talk at the PFL, right? But if you're a fighter in general and you've seen some of the carry-on that went on in that card too, you'd be asking yourself if you want to go over there and actually compete. Like that's the impact that, you know, scenarios like what we've seen on that card will have on the PFL and everything like that. I mean, just very, very, very egregious officiating, and you know, it's disappointing to see. Very, very disappointing to see.
The irony is the worst two cards of the entire event were two American judges.
Yeah.
But it does, like, but no.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that it's more local, but I mean, it's like, you know, there's a lot of MMA going on that weekend as well, and judges.
Well, they're funded. They're very clearly funding the event, and you're getting these. You know, it was pointed out to me. I was going fucking crazy when we're watching the Hughes fight because they're cutting away from on the broadcast. They're cutting away from like the corner and like what you see in the corner to these promos. I'm like, why the fuck are they showing these? They've already sold us the fight. We don't need to be like hyped up about Paul and Usman. And then I turned to my missus watching the fight with me and she's like, you know why that is? Like they're promoting Dubai there. Like that's nothing to do with the fight. And it completely went over my head. It's just these advertisements for Dubai mid-round. So yeah, that'll definitely give credence to or give fuel to the fire of let's call it conspiracy talk.
The conspiracy talk, but yeah, you know, talks of robbery as well. And I don't want to kind of, you know, the robbery word was thrown around a little bit, but I think it is kind of justified here, not necessarily just on the scorecards, but on just the handling of the main event. And you just want to see a person getting a fair shake. And, you know, obviously it's an Irish person that had happened to, but there would be, I would hope, a similar level of controversy if it was somebody else from another part of the world. You want to see fighters get a fair shake in general. And I think fouling, you know, the fouling aspect of that fight was almost on a par with me of what we've seen with the judges' scorecards there. And I think it's a huge problem in MMA as a whole. It's like you're just basically allowed to free foul in MMA now. I saw
Caoilte saying that like you should be fouling. Like in every single scenario you should be fouling because you won't get punished. You just
it happens. It happens in the UFC as well. It happens in the UFC all the time too. I mean, watching fights.
2 points should have been taken, and like, I don't want to. Let me be very clear on that. While I did edge it for Usman or Nurmagomedov when I scored it, the points should have been deducted, and Paul Hughes was not given a fair crack.
No, 100%. Anyway, let's move on. Richie Smullen was over there taking on Ivan Buchenko. And he was good fight.
Fun scrap.
Yeah, round one and rounds two for Smullen and Buchenko kind of came on in round three and got the job done. Some comeback in fairness, wasn't it?
Like probably up there for one of the, well, maybe not comeback of the year, but like I'd say it would make the shortlist anyway. Like Smullen was fairly battering him early, and it just seemed that like any time Buchinger was given even this remotest sniff of an opportunity to escape, he did. Like Smullen looked close to finishing him a couple of times, but he just kept coming back and kept coming back and kept coming back, and he found a way to win. And to be honest, like when we obviously look from the Irish side, but like what a scene for Ivan Buchinger. Like the crowd went absolutely wild. Obviously he's most famously known for being the guy that McGregor starched to win the second belt in Cage Warriors, and now this 11 years on, he gets an opportunity to go back against SBG, and he's getting battered. Smullen was battering him for a while in that fight, but he pulled it out of the bag, and an incredible win. And look, I think, albeit Smullen, it's a tough loss for Smullen, because like he was going to be in pole position then for a title shot. But I think like he gave a great account of himself, and I think that he's probably be still right up in the mix there towards the top of that division. And Smullen's a force to be reckoned with. But yeah, like just it was some win for Buchinger. Like
great win, and then to get the submission as well. I mean, submitting a guy like Richie Smullen, who's known for that, kind of beating him at his own game as well.
And Smullen almost submitted him earlier
as well. Yeah, it's crazy, and geez, it's I think it's crazy to see like. We were at SPG as well. Smullen becomes the latest. There's been a couple of submission losses for the SPG gym over the last couple of months as well, which is crazy to see as well. But nonetheless, a good performance from Smullen. And I think, he will rebound quite well as well. So let's move on. I want to talk about Alexander O'Sullivan as well, Caoilte. He was out there and picked up a very good win at Cage Warriors 195 in Rome. Were you impressed by his performance?
Yeah, he looked very good. Striking was, got to see a lot of striking this time. Timing was on point when he got into the inside, landed strikes. They were effective. He got out of harm's way pretty well. Then his grappling, we're all aware of how good his grappling is. And I think he dropped, is it I'm going to butcher his name, Lancioli or whatever his name is. Alexander dropped him at 1.2, just got into a little knee and he popped back up again. But overall, it was a down in performance. And did I could be wrong here now, so if I'm spreading fake news, my apologies. But I think, did he break his hand or something as well? I thought I saw, but I could be wrong. But either way, absolutely dominant performance. Looked incredible in there. A real shutout over in Italy. So interesting to see how they match him up next, considering how stacked that lightweight division is. And now he moves to 4-0.
Yeah, 4-0. Manuel Lancioli. Yeah, you nailed it, Caoilte. You nailed that. I'm
telling you, those trips to Italy are paying off.
There you go. A guy, Andy, that fought on that card was Daniel Carlson, and he was called into action. He went from Rome to Cork, and he was called in for a last-minute opponent for Brian Manning at EFC this past weekend. Fair play to him for coming in and taking this at short notice. Made the fight as competitive as can be. Man, it was a typical Brian Manning performance, really, wasn't it? Moving forward, landing big shots, and getting the job done against a good name there as well. So I was impressed by it, and Brian has been kind of forging his path there through his professional career so far. He moves to 5-0 now, I believe, and it was a good win down in Cork, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was brilliant, because like. And fair play to Elite FC for getting this one over the line, because he obviously he was matched in short notice to begin with against a guy, I'm forgetting the guy's name now, but I kind of put a tongue-in-cheek post up being like this lad is 17 and of his last 18 wins are first round KO losses. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Brian Manning's going to win by first round KO. That fight falls apart, and they bring in an experienced guy who's fought on Cage Warriors. He literally just fought. He's fought some good guys, and he still goes out there and beats him in the first round. And you could tell the difference between that caliber of opponent versus, with all due respect, like a Khan being brought in. Had it been a lesser opponent, they wouldn't have survived the first onslaught from Manning. because he was unloading absolute bombs. Every single shot he was throwing with vicious intention. Every shot was throwing to hurt, to put him out. And he looked like he was about to get the stoppage early on. Carlson survives. He threw some shots back, but Manning was just relentless, and he started to find a home for his jab, and then the big shots started landing, and that was really it. It was a really impressive performance against a durable, experienced guy, and a decent, for an Irish show, that was a decent level of competition. So 5-0 now. Brian he seems to have been very honest and open that, look, he's playing the game. He knows that all Dana White and the UFC matchmakers care about these days really are undefeated records. They don't care who you fight. They want to see KOs. They want to see finishes. And that's how you'll get to the UFC. And, I could see more and more fighters going to this kind of mindset of, like, why does it matter who I fight? Now he's signed to Octagon, so it'll be very interesting to see who they get him matched up with. I think in
certain terms it matters who you fight, though, isn't it, Andy? When you...
It does for your experience and to make sure that you're
because when you get to the UFC, you don't want to be in a position where you're jumping into that level where you're not kind of fully testing yourself, or you haven't found out what your true abilities are. Now, obviously, Brian has passed all of his tests with flying colours here. I do think a next fight in Octagon, and a big jump up again, because he's going out there and passing these tests with flying colours. So give him a good test. He's 5-0 right now, and I'm sure they have a good lot of lads over there in Octagon that they can kind of challenge Brian with, and it'd be exciting to see if he can kind of live up to those tests as well on route to where he wants to go.
And you want to see him with one of those big pantomime walkouts, we talked about this when he was signed. He's a match made in heaven for Octagon. Like that, you got to get him in front of one of those big stadium shows where he's coming out in one of his Halloween masks or whatever it may be, whatever the latest get up is.
He has no nickname. I know we've given him we've given a few nicknames on the Owl Triangle here. What do you think about this one, lads? Brian Mad Dog Manning.
Ooh,
is he not the Lamb?
Is he not? Maybe he is. It's not an on-topology, Caoilte. Just not to throw you under the bus.
He switches it up a bit now, I think, so he does.
Yeah.
But the Lamb is what I thought I saw.
The Lamb.
I think Mad Dog actually works quite well.
I do like that.
Brian Mad Dog Manning. If you like that, Brian.
It's like, what's it like? I'm sure the Lamb is incredibly meaningful to himself and to his supporters and to Cork and to people in Ireland. But, like, will it be on a global stage? Like, will people get it? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. But, like, Mad Dog Manning. He's a bit of a mad dog as well, to be fair.
He is. That's just it is. Good. Anyway, I know. Just said I'd throw that out there. That kind of came to my mind when I knew we were going to talk about it here. Let's talk about upcoming action, guys. We have a big fight happening in Brave 100. Muhammad Mokaev and Jared Burns is going to be happening. And I know it's a fight that Jared Burns has been... he has been calling for quite some time, and it's going to be for the inaugural flyweight title over there on November 7th. It's probably the biggest fight announcement since we've last been on. Apart from obviously Ian Garry and Belal Muhammad, that's been announced as well. I think this is a great fight for Jared Burns, Andy. You kind of labelled it when we were chatting about as a true underdog tale here, because he has a big task ahead of him here against Muhammad Mokaev.
I mean, nobody is going to be expecting him to win this fight. Like, that's the story here. It's an underdog coming in here against one of the best flyweights in the world, including everyone in the UFC. This is a guy who probably should be fighting for UFC titles right now rather than fighting under the Brave banner. Jared Burns, I believe, he's also a guy who has been fighting since, when we're talking about Mokaev, since he was a child. Came up all the way through the IMAF system, undefeated in over a decade. I can't remember what his official record is now, but like something like probably around 30-0 or in and around that, maybe even more across amateur and pro. And he's absolutely expected to come in here and win. But Jared Burns, on the other hand, a guy who, my understanding is he was at a cage conflict show as a punter and decided, you know what, I'll have a bit of that. Let me try this MMA crack out. And now he's fighting Muhammad Mokaev, maybe 5-6 years later, for the Brave flyweight title. And look, I think Burns has looked absolutely phenomenal in Brave. We've seen him put lads out. We've seen him go the distance. But look, we have to be honest, this is a humongous step up in competition. It's nowhere near anything he's ever experienced. But, the lads up in FAI and Jared Burns will probably be relishing that, to say we're going to be the guy who's going to slay the giants. He'll be a heavy underdog coming into this. And, anyone in to be fair to the fans watching, anyone in the right mind should be picking Muhammad Mokaev in this fight. But if Jared Burns can come in and do it here and create the upset, people are going to be tuning in to watch Mokaev here, because that's the draw here. That's the sell here for Brave, is we have the best flyweight in the world, potentially. And if you can come in here and upset the apple carts, then you're off to the races, and all of a sudden you've got a humongous spotlight on you. Now, obviously a humongous task ahead of him.
Yeah, big task ahead of him, all right, as well. Look, we're a little bit tight for time, so I kind of just going to throw a couple of different subjects. So I'm going to throw this one at you, Caoilte. I just mentioned Ian Garry versus Belal Muhammad over in Qatar. Really big fight for Ian Garry, taking on the number 1 ranked guy in the welterweight division, and a win, and an impressive win, can really set him up for a title shot here.
Yeah, do you know what? It came a bit out of left field, that. But what a fight, do you know?
Yeah.
It's 3 rounds, which I'm not sure if it suits Ian Garry or not here. I think it might not. I think I prefer seeing Ian over 5 rounds, so it's going to be a little bit different. But what a fight and what an opportunity. Do you know, I think this is the fight that if he wins this, he is next in line for the title. And just, look, you're going against former champion, one of the best in the division, and it's just such a massive moment and opportunity for Ian Garry here in the UFC.
Yeah, 100%. Not at short notice. Coming in on the full camp as well, which will do him the world of good, Andy. I spoke with him just behind the scenes when I was over at UFC Montreal, and obviously that was the night that Belal Muhammad lost his title to Jack Della Maddalena. He told me that night that he wanted Belal Muhammad in Chicago for the Chicago event. Obviously that didn't materialize, but he gets his wish over in Qatar, and if he goes out there and gets a finish over Belal Muhammad, he could very, very well find himself next in line for the shot at the welterweight title, which is big news, really.
I think it's probably the best fight that he could have gotten here as far as positioning himself for that number 1 contender, because there's a lot of lads around. There's obviously the Sean Brady's and the Shavkats as well, and then obviously JDM will be fighting Makhachev for the title. So there is no absolute clear next contender. I would say there's a few lads who can stake their claim, and I think if Ian can go in here and catch Belal Muhammad on the hop as he's coming off his title loss, and if he can go in, Ian has been promising for the last number of fights to go in and take lads' heads off and get the KO. Now that hasn't materialized, and part of it is just fight promotion as well. He fights very intelligently and methodically when he's in there. But if he can go in here and finish Belal Muhammad emphatically, or just finish him, period, that's a huge statement. It's you cannot overlook Ian at that point for the next title shot, in my opinion. Now, if it goes in here and it's more of a cagey chess match and a close decision, it's still a phenomenal win. Don't get me wrong. Will the UFC say, right, you're the clear number 1 contender? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. They'll probably wait to see how other results shake out and then make a decision at that point. But between that and the timing, given that I think there's a week between the title fight and this fight with Ian and Belal, it lines them up very nicely for the next crack at the belt.
Yeah, it definitely does. Jeez, I saw Islam Makhachev. I'm not sure whether you've seen the video.
The grappling,
you see the size of him. He is bulking. He's bulking heavy. He's not missing any meals this time. Anyway, but looking forward to seeing what happens there with Ian Garry. Cage Conflict, Caoilte, this weekend. Massive main event. Obviously, the much awaited and highly anticipated debut of Damian McGuigan, the SevereMMA Amateur of the Year last year, jumps in to the professional ranks for the very first time. He takes on Giacomo Stacianelli. I'm just looking forward to this one. I don't know anything about his opponent. I'm just excited to see Damian McGuigan back in action again.
That's it, yeah. It's one of those exciting debuts of, one of the most talked about prospects in Ireland is entering the pro ranks. We're seeing that a lot in the last, few years, and he's the latest of the crop to come up, and I'd be interested to see how he looks in 4-ounce gloves. We saw how exciting he was as an amateur. He was able to finish. He was able to put on incredible fights. So now we get to see it in the pro ranks. I think he won't be hanging around the regional scene for very long. I would imagine he'll be snapped up quite quickly by either a European promotion by European promotion, maybe a PFL. Who knows? You never know with these things, but I can't imagine he'll be hanging around the regional scene very long. So great to see him turn pro, and hopefully we can see him get one or two in, or one more in, maybe two more in by the end of the year.
100%, Andy. It's been a while since we have seen Damien in action. Obviously, his last amateur fight was in September 2024, but it was a calculated time off to get adjusted to the professional ranks, and I'm sure you're expecting to see an exciting showcase from Damien.
Yeah, considering how impressive he's looked at amateur, the fact that they've methodically gone here and said, right, 11 months off, we're going to prep you for coming into pro. I'm expecting to see a different version of Damien McGuigan here. Team Stevenson's Damien McGuigan, might I add here.
Not really, too much to talk about this year, in fairness, Andy.
Solomon Simon fighting for a Cage Warriors belt. Additionally, actually, on this card, now that you mention it, Ian, Jer Ryan, Team Stevenson fighting a brilliant fight against Michael Shields, the amateur featherweight interim title here in Cage Conflict. That's probably the next best fight on the card, I would say. Tough fight now for Jer Ryan. I'll say I rate Michael Shields highly, but this could be big night for Team Stevenson.
Huge night for Cage. You're surely going to go up then and cheer on your team.
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah.
This petrol's expensive these days, lads.
That's it.
You've seen the budget. Come on now.
Exactly. Anything else on that card, real quick, that you're looking forward to?
Roose George versus Kieran Maskey. Great fight. I like that one. What else we got? Jed Paolo fighting James Slavin for a belt as well. It's another good fight. Any other ones that are sticking out? There's a lot of fights as always on this card. Aaron McDonald's fighting at pro, I believe. I think you can never really trust Tapology. Not Tapology Quilch, don't get offended, but with regional shows until like the week of the fight. I see Rory Burke versus Almas Oliver as well. Another great fight.
Too. Yeah, that's a good fight too. Quilch, we have Clan Wars coming up the weekend after that. We could probably talk about that a little bit more as well. Anything on that Clan Wars cards that sticks out that we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, you've got a few lads turning pro, and a few lads making their second appearance as a pro. You've got Ronan Deegan there against Shane Mullen. Like, what a fight! And that's a domestic clash. Andy would be frothing at the mouth looking at that one. Yeah, it's what a fight though. And then Andrew Barrett making his pro debut against Roger. I can't say
Roger Lopez.
Roger Lopez. Yeah, Roger Lopez. Look, he's no joke.
He's a good little kickboxer, Roger Lopez, isn't he? I always see him training with Damien Darker, and
yeah, he's a serious outstriking. Like, so he'll put up a good test for Andrew Barrett. So that's going to be a cracker. So yeah, overall, really, really looking forward to. You got those two pro fights. Tristan Barnes fighting Peter Halpenny for the belt. Nate Kelly is fighting Ricky De Araujo. That's a very, very good fight. Nathan Chambers and Cesar Correa as well. So overall, they're putting on a really good card there now with Clan Wars. No easy fights there to be.
Tell you what, in fairness, we talked for a long time about Nate the Great Kelly. We wanted to see him in like an All-Irish showdown. That and Ricky Araujo, that's not a bad fight there now.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Has he left PFL now, or it's just kind of? Don't know. Good question. I'm asking a question that you don't know. Sorry, I don't know why you asked. I was just thinking out loud.
Let's say yes.
Look, Ed, and then doing Ed Sheeran, thinking out loud here. But anyway, nonetheless, two other tidbits before we wrap up today, lads. Want to talk about James Gallagher. He's obviously coming back and fighting on October 23rd in ACA. He takes on Ali Al-Kahasi, 16-9 in his professional career. Good test, Caoilte, for James coming back. I'm excited to see him back. Obviously, last couple of fights haven't gone his way, but it's good to see James Gallagher back in action. Obviously, coming off that win via armbar versus Fabricio Soares in his last fight. Back at ACA.
Yeah, the controversial ACA, but look, it's actually a really good fight. I think it's a good test against a lad who's fought in the UFC before, someone who's won the UAE Warriors belt, has had some incredible wins of his own in Ali Al-Kahasi. So absolutely brilliant fight. I think it's a good test for him, and if he can get a finish here and add another win to the record, like, he could be really putting him in the mix for a call up to the UFC if he gets the win here.
Big time as well. I gotta finish with this one, lads. Obviously, if anyone has been living under a rock, they would have missed this news. But Conor McGregor has been suspended for 18 months by the UFC for missed tests. So, in a little bit of a statement here, I'll just read out the news from ESPN.com. Conor McGregor received an 18-month suspension from the UFC anti-doping program Combat Sports Anti-Doping, CSAD, on Tuesday last. His suspension is retrospective to September 20th, 2024 and will end on March 20th, 2026, little more than 3 months before the UFC White House card that is set to go down on June 14th. Obviously the suspension is not to a direct doping case, I guess you could say. It's more so due to missed tests. So he has not been found or hasn't been tested positive for any substance, but he has missed a whereabouts failure on 3 occasions. That was on June 13th, September 19th, and September 20th in 2024, where he did not provide accurate information regarding his location. Now, obviously, that leads you to be very speculative as to why he has missed those tests. The statement read, Mr. McGregor missed 3 attempted biological sample collections within a 12-month period in 2024, which constitutes a violation of the UFC ADP. UFC athletes are required to provide accurate whereabouts of information at all times so that they can be contacted and submitted to a biological sample collections without prior warning. Like I said, McGregor's missed tests happened on June 13th, September 19th, and 20th. And were all classified as whereabout failures by the CSAD, which means the 18-month suspension happened. Whew, lot to unpack there. Look at another controversy for Conor McGregor. They're coming thick and fast these days. And obviously, this is one that he tactically chose to take some time off social media right the day before this happened. Andy, I'll go to you first.
Very coincidental.
Yeah, very coincidental here. It took quite some time for this information to get out. Obviously, we have to go with the facts here, but, obviously situations like this can get very speculative. And obviously this was kind of correlating around his fight with Michael Chandler. Like I said, not a direct doping suspension, but more of a whereabouts failure as well, which, whether you agree with it, whether you don't agree with it, you sign up onto that contract. He was very outspoken about, USAD in the past and everything like that. But, when you sign up, you soldier on here, Andy, you got to abide by the rules. And Conor McGregor, once again, has failed to abide by the rules when it comes to life, I guess.
You could certainly say that, all right. There's also he was in the pool, then he was out of the pool. So once you're in the pool, that's, the rules. He's been around for over a decade.
And now, in this time, I think it was,
it was the third. June 3rd was when the press conference in Dublin was supposed to be. Remember the one that was cancelled because of the broken toe. So the first one was 10 days. The first whereabouts, whatever you want to call it,
whereabouts failure.
Was 10 days after that, and then obviously there was the 2 subsequent ones. You could look at it one way and say this is Conor McGregor, one of the most erratic people, you would probably say, that you could think of in Conor McGregor. It's probably not the most surprising thing that they couldn't track him down and find him. But then on the other hand, you could say, well, this is the guy who's made more money than anyone else in the history of the sport and has the means and the tools to be able to employ someone, and probably has, I would assume, someone perhaps that could handle these types of things for him, where it's not him going in and filling out the whereabouts in an app or whatever. Surely you could just pay someone to do that. Everyone else is part of this, but more so, I don't know, my reaction to this was not really even more so around Conor McGregor. I'm just USADA parted ways with the UFC. They now have this new crowd in. This is dating back between June and September of 2024.
Almost a year ago.
why are we only hearing about this now? Like, surely, and like maybe there's reason as to why the punishment has only been given out now. Perhaps there was a process where you can, I don't know. This is all speculation where you can appeal it or whatever. But why is none of that transparent? Why are we not hearing anything about that? And to me, that raises red flags on the UFC side, just generally, because when I saw that they were parting ways with USADA and bringing in their own kind of version of this and appointing someone to run it, that never really sat well with me, because I'm like, well, why are you not partnering with like a truly independent body here? Like, to me, it feels a bit. I don't know.
Yeah,
it feels
does.
a bit dodgy.
I mean, a little bit, but I think, at the end of the day, the suspension is there. I don't think it wouldn't have had a direct effect, I think, on McGregor and him competing. Obviously, he was busy with other stuff, obviously the trial and everything like that, which would have probably held him back, and the presidential campaign as well, which would have held him back probably from fighting. Yeah, but I mean, I agree. I mean,
the body, doing what they need to do.
Yeah, but I think on other occasions I have seen.
Ironically,
yeah, I think in other cases we have seen, retroactive suspensions as well. I've certainly seen that as well, but obviously when it's one of the biggest personalities in the mixed martial arts community, you would ask how or why it took so long for this information to get out, and conveniently so, how the suspension now just kind of clears him to take the opportunity to fight on this White House card. Caoilte, your opinion on this before we wrap up?
To be honest, I have more questions than anything of like why, like how did this all happen? He's, like Andy mentioned about, he's got all the money and all going on. That how does this happen? It seems ridiculous, but I don't understand between the retrospective stuff. Was there appeal process as to why we only find out now? Like I said, I have a lot more just questions about it more than anything. I'm not really surprised, and I actually forgot about it because when I realized the fact that it's not actually affecting anything to do with him fighting again and stuff like that, because he's going to fight in the White House card. Well, he wants to fight in the White House card, and it's not going to affect that. Then I was like, well, it doesn't really make much of a difference really at this point. And I don't know why he's missed these. I'd like to know why. I'm surprised he's. I don't know why he's missed them, but I would like to know. And it just raises more questions than anything. I'm not going to even speculate on this, that, whatever, because people love to do it. The fact of the matter is he's missed 3. I don't particularly care. Don't particularly care about the news. It doesn't affect me that much. It just seems like he's not playing by the rules as always, and that's just how it is. And it's a shame, if anything, because this ban doesn't really do anything to him. It doesn't affect him much. He's not going to be fighting by the time it ends anyway.
It's another scar in his legacy too. I mean, that's it. Scars there already, you know what I mean? But one thing you could always say is that there was never anything related to drugs bans or doping bans or question marks over if he was or if he wasn't. But now there is. That's the thing.
It's something that he would have been incredibly vocal about a decade ago. I mean, remember there was the whole incident.
And the gym as well. This is another SBG fighter.
You're right.
Was the Aldo member where the claim, was it the claim that he allegedly had chased off a USADA employee or something who had come to visit him around the time? Like these types of seemingly more minor aspects of anti-doping rather than an actual failure, they follow people, and people like Conor McGregor previously would have jumped at the opportunity to point this out and highlight the serious nature of it, or at least, and maybe that was just tactical at the time, but like it goes against everything. Well, not that it goes against everyone, but like it's something that he would have pounced upon back then, and obviously like we talked about when Will Fleury failed, and John Kavanagh has very public comments that very strong stances against anti-doping and what he would do with kicking people out of the gym if they were ever caught and all this type of stuff. That also seems to have changed. So I don't know. It's another
stain on the career.
Another stain.
Another stain, indeed. Well, that wraps us up.
More positive notes, because we forgot one thing. Speaking of SBG, Pedro Carvalho's back fighting for a title.
Oh yes, I know it.
So big fan of Pedro Carvalho. Love to see him back fighting. He's fighting Damian Lapilus, who he was former BAMA champion, wasn't he, years ago? He's fighting him for a title, and I'm forgetting the name of the organization now, which is really unfortunate given I've just brought this up. But as I stall for time, WNC3 fighting for a professional title there. Coming up next week. So looking forward to seeing that.
Looking forward to seeing that as well. I don't know if there's anything that you have to tell myself and Caoilte, Andy, out there doing solo content. Is this like John Lennon and the Beatles? Content. Is this out there doing? Is it like John Lennon and the Beatles? Are you going to break? Are you finished with us now? That's it.
I was just like, I knew we weren't recording for this. I needed to get off my chest. And clearly for good reason, because I literally, I came on here. You asked me, so what did you think about that round, Andy? I'm like,
well, I thought
it was like birds going in, like,
man, that you might have had a little bit of it.
It was like going into like where is that file in my brain? And it's just like, error 404, file not found.
The John Lennon of Irish mixed martial arts media. Is that what we'll call you going forward now? It's not the worst kind of comparison. I mean, he's a genius, isn't he?
Do you know why I ended up putting a YouTube video out? Because I sat down to do a video and I was like, right, I'll record a quick 2-minute video here, and then it ended up being 23 minutes. And I was like, fuck. And I was like,
do it all in one take.
It wouldn't be like it, though.
Well, then I edited it down lows, and then I was like, what the fuck am I doing putting like an 18-minute video up on Instagram? Like, at this point, they'll just throw it up on YouTube. Like, I don't fucking know.
That's it. Well,
I'm out anyway. This is the last episode, so I'll
that's it. He's leaving us now. We're going to have to.
Doesn't even get to 100.
Like, what's our Abbey? Yeah, our Abbey Road will be probably episode 100, and he'll be off then. You know, I don't know.
The old square.
I'm only cutting anyway. The old square anyway. But all the best to Andy and his solo career. All the best. Thanks everybody for listening to the podcast. We'll be back again in another 2 weeks' time. Cheers for listening. We went on awful rants. We appreciate the support. We'll talk to you again soon. Good luck. And all that's left for us to do is for Caoilte to see us out.
Gar míle maith agaibh agus slán go fóill.